Chapter 1. The corridors of St. Augustine Middle School smelled faintly of chalk dust and disinfectant, but to her they smelled of suspicion. Every glance seemed sharpened, every whisper carried her name. The reports had begun to circulate, thin sheets of paper, stamped with the school crest, folded into envelopes that traveled from teacher to parent, from parent to principal, from principal to counselor. Each one carried a verdict, and each verdict was the same: bully. Observed mocking behavior toward peers during group work. Student laughed at another's pronunciation, causing visible distress. Repeated incidents of exclusion. Student deliberately left classmates out of recess games. Intimidation noted. Student used threatening language, "You'll regret it if you tell." The words were clinical, stripped of emotion, yet they cut deeper than any insult. She read them once, twice, 3 times, searching for loopholes, for misinterpretations. But the ink was merciless. "Do you understand what these mean?" Mr. Kamau, her homeroom teacher, tapped the papers with a ruler. His voice was low, deliberate, as though each syllable carried the weight of law. "They're lies," she muttered, staring at the floor. "Lies?" His eyebrows rose. 3 different teachers, 5 separate incidents, corroborated by classmates. "That's not lies. That's a pattern." Her throat tightened. "They hate me. They want me gone." Mr. Kamau leaned forward. "Or perhaps you've made it easy for them to hate you." The classroom was empty except for the 2 of them, yet she felt surrounded. The desks seemed to lean in, the chalkboard loomed like a witness. She wanted to scream, to hurl the ruler across the room, but instead she folded her arms tighter, nails digging into her skin. At recess, she overheard them. "She told me I was worthless," whispered Amina, clutching her notebook like a shield. "She pushed me near the lockers," said Brian, voice trembling. "She said she'd ruin me if I spoke," added another, eyes darting nervously. Each story was a shard of glass, cutting into her defense. She wanted to shout back, "You're exaggerating. You're twisting everything." But the words stuck. The more she denied, the more their voices grew. Her parents sat across from the principal, faces pale with worry. "We've received multiple reports," the principal said, sliding the papers across the desk. "This is serious. Bullying is not tolerated here." Her mother's hands trembled as she picked up the sheets. "But she's not like this at home." Her father's jaw tightened. "There must be a mistake." The principal shook his head. "Mistakes don't repeat themselves. This is consistent." She sat between them, silent, her heart pounding. Every instinct screamed to defend herself, to cry out that she was misunderstood. But the words felt hollow. She could see it in their eyes, the teachers, the parents, even her own family. They believed the reports. The next day, she tried. "I didn't push him," she told Ms. Wanjiru, her science teacher. "He tripped." "But 3 students saw you shove him," Ms. Wanjiru replied. "I didn't say she was worthless," she insisted to Mr. Patel, the math teacher. "I said the answer was worthless." "Intent matters," Mr. Patel said. "And your intent was cruel." Every defense collapsed under the weight of testimony. Each denial sounded weaker, more desperate. She began to feel like a criminal in a courtroom where the jury had already decided. At night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The reports replayed in her mind, each line etched in fire. She imagined them pinned to bulletin boards, whispered in staff meetings, folded into files that would follow her forever. Her parents tried to comfort her. "We'll figure this out," her mother said softly. "We'll talk to the counselor." But she saw the doubt in their eyes. They wanted to believe her, but the evidence was too heavy. She began to withdraw. At lunch, she sat alone, the chatter of classmates a distant hum. In class, she kept her head down, afraid to speak, afraid that any word might be twisted into another report. One afternoon, Mr. Kamau stopped her in the hallway. "Why didn't you hand in your assignment?" I did, she snapped. You lost it. His eyes narrowed. Watch your tone. I'm tired of being blamed for everything, she shouted, voice echoing down the corridor. Students turned, staring. Mr. Kamau's face hardened. That's exactly the attitude we're talking about. Another report was filed. By the end of the week, she no longer fought. She sat through lectures, silent. She endured whispers, stares, the occasional shove from classmates emboldened by her reputation. The reports piled higher. Student displayed defiance toward authority. Raised voice in hallway, disruptive. Continues to deny responsibility despite evidence. Her parents' faces grew heavier with each meeting. Her mother cried quietly at night. Her father spoke less, his silence louder than any words. She felt herself shrinking, dissolving into the margins of the school. Every attempt at defense had been futile. Every word she spoke seemed to confirm their accusations. On Friday, she sat in the principal's office once more. The stack of reports lay between them, a mountain she could never climb. Do you understand the seriousness of this? The principal asked. She nodded, though her throat burned. You've left us no choice, he continued. Your parents will arrange therapy. We hope this will help you change. She wanted to scream, to tear the papers apart, to prove them wrong. But the fight was gone. All that remained was despair, heavy and suffocating. As she walked out of the office, the hallway seemed longer than ever, each step echoing her defeat. The whispers followed, the stares pierced. She was no longer a student. She was a case file, a cautionary tale, a name etched in reports. And she knew, deep down, that no defense could save her now. Chapter 2. The car ride to the psychiatrist's office was silent. Her mother stared straight ahead, knuckles white against the steering wheel. Her father sat rigid in the passenger seat, arms crossed, jaw clenched. She sat in the back, watching the city blur past, feeling like a prisoner being transported to trial. They hadn't asked her if she wanted therapy. They hadn't asked if she believed the reports. They had simply decided. You need help, her mother had said, voice trembling but firm. We can't ignore this anymore. She wanted to scream, I didn't do it. I'm not what they say. But every time she tried, their eyes hardened. They didn't believe her. Not anymore. At home, her father had laid the reports across the dining table like evidence in a courtroom. Look at this, he said, tapping the papers. 5 teachers. 10 incidents. Do you expect us to believe they all conspired against you? They're wrong, she whispered. Her mother shook her head. Sweetheart, denial won't help. We need to change your behavior before it's too late. The words stung. Change your behavior. Not prove your innocence. Not we believe you. They had already decided she was guilty. Therapy wasn't for healing, it was for correction. Dr. Mwangi's office was warm, decorated with soft chairs and shelves of books. A painting of a calm ocean hung on the wall, meant to soothe. But to her, it felt like a trap. Her parents sat beside her as introductions were made. She's been reported multiple times for bullying, her father explained. We want her to understand the seriousness of her actions. Dr. Mwangi nodded, jotting notes. We'll work together to help her see the impact of her behavior. She clenched her fists. Impact of her behavior. Already, the verdict was written. When her parents left the room, Dr. Mwangi leaned forward. Tell me what happened. I didn't do those things, she said quickly. They're lying. He smiled gently, but his eyes were sharp. Denial is common. But the reports are consistent. Teachers, classmates, they can't all be lying. They hate me, she insisted. They twist everything. Why would they hate you? He asked. Could it be because of how you treat them? She froze. The question was a trap. If she answered, she admitted guilt. If she stayed silent, she confirmed suspicion. Session after session, the same pattern unfolded. Why did you call Amina worthless? I didn't. But she remembers it clearly. Why would she invent that? Why did you push Brian? He tripped. 3 witnesses saw you shove him. Why would they all lie? Each denial was met with calm persistence. Each defense was dismantled. Slowly, the sessions became less about truth and more about persuasion. You must accept responsibility, Dr. Mwangi said one afternoon. Only then can you change. She shook her head. But I didn't. He interrupted softly. The reports say you did. Your classmates say you did. Your teachers say you did. Your parents believe you did. Isn't it easier to accept that maybe you did? The words echoed in her mind. Maybe you did. At home, her parents reinforced the message. We're doing this for your own good, her mother said. You need to stop hurting people, her father added. But I didn't hurt anyone, she cried. Her father's voice rose. Enough. Every time you deny, you make it worse. Do you want to be expelled? Do you want this to follow you forever? Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Please, just listen to the doctor. Admit what you did. Change. She felt cornered. Their love had become conditional, tied to her confession. One evening, after another session, she sat alone in her room, staring at the reports her parents had left on her desk. The words blurred, but the accusations were clear. She whispered to herself, I didn't do it. But the whisper sounded weak, fragile. Her parents knocked on the door. We need you to try harder, her mother said softly. Dr. Mwangi says progress comes when you accept responsibility. Her father added, we won't stop until you change. She realized then, it didn't matter what she said. They had chosen their truth. Her defense was futile. The sessions grew more intense. Bullying often comes from insecurity, Dr. Mwangi explained. Do you feel insecure? No. Anger, then? Do you feel angry at others? No. Desire for control? Do you like being in charge? Maybe. He smiled. That's honest. And when you feel that desire, sometimes it comes out as bullying. She wanted to protest, but the logic was relentless. Each question nudged her closer to confession. See? You're beginning to understand, he said. You did those things because you wanted control. Now we can work on changing that. Her parents began to smile again. She's making progress, her mother said after a session. She's finally admitting it, her father added. They praised her when she repeated the therapist's words. I wanted control. I was insecure. I hurt others. But inside, she felt hollow. She wasn't admitting truth, she was surrendering. By the end of the month, she no longer fought. In therapy, she nodded when told she had bullied. At home, she repeated the phrases her parents wanted to hear. I'm sorry. I'll change. I understand now. Her parents beamed. Dr. Mwangi wrote in his notes, progress observed. Student acknowledges behavior. But in her heart, despair deepened. She had lost the battle for truth. Her voice had been drowned out by reports, by parents, by therapy. She was no longer defending herself. She was being rewritten. One evening, she sat at her desk, staring at the reports once more. She picked up a pen and scribbled across the margins, I didn't do it. Then she crossed it out. Her parents knocked on the door, smiling. Ready for school tomorrow? Her mother asked. She forced a smile. Yes. Inside, she felt the weight of defeat. Therapy hadn't healed her, it had convinced her to wear a mask. And tomorrow, she would return to school, carrying that mask, pretending to be the person they wanted her to be. Chapter 3. The first day back felt like stepping onto a stage. She had rehearsed her lines in therapy, memorized the gestures her parents praised, and polished the smile that convinced teachers she was making progress. The mask fit snugly, hiding the storm beneath. She walked into the classroom with a cheerful good morning, and placed her books neatly on the desk. The teacher looked up, startled, then smiled. "It's good to see you trying," he said. The classmates exchanged wary glances. They remembered the reports, the accusations, the whispers. But now she was different, or at least, she appeared to be. She volunteered to clean the chalkboard. She offered to help Amina with her math homework. She raised her hand to answer questions, her tone polite, her words measured. Teachers began to write new reports. Student shows improvement. Participates positively in class. Helpful toward peers. Demonstrates kindness. Her parents beamed when they read them. Therapy was working, they said. She was changing. But inside, she was calculating. Every smile was a blade, every act of kindness a step in her plan. She remembered each name, each face that had spoken against her. Amina, Brian, the others. They had built the mountain of reports that crushed her. Now, she would dismantle them, one by one. Her strategy was simple: divide and conquer. She began with Amina. Sitting beside her in class, she whispered encouragement. "You're really good at this," she said, pointing at Amina's neat handwriting. Amina blushed, grateful. Slowly, she drew Amina closer, making her feel safe. Then, in subtle moments, she planted seeds. "It's strange," she murmured one day, "how Brian always laughs when you make mistakes. Did you notice?" Amina frowned. I guess." The seed took root. With Brian, she used a different tactic. She praised him in front of others. "Brian's answers are always sharp," she said loudly during group work. The teacher nodded, impressed. Brian smiled, basking in the attention. But later, she whispered, "Funny how Amina always tries to copy you. Doesn't it feel like she's using you?" Brian's smile faltered. Soon, Amina and Brian began to drift apart, each suspicious of the other. She watched with quiet satisfaction. Her brilliance lay in subtle reversals. When Amina accused her of mocking, she now mocked Amina indirectly, through jokes that seemed innocent. "Oh, you're so sensitive," she said with a laugh. "I was just teasing." Teachers saw only laughter, not cruelty. When Brian accused her of pushing, she engineered moments where Brian bumped into others. "Careful," she exclaimed loudly. "You're always so rough." The teacher frowned at Brian, not at her. Each accusation was mirrored back, each report inverted. She expanded her reach. With whispers, she sowed doubt among classmates. "She told me you said something about her. He thinks you're jealous. They don't trust you anymore." The classroom became a web of suspicion. Friends turned into rivals, allies into enemies. And through it all, she stood at the center, smiling, helpful, virtuous. Teachers praised her for bringing people together, unaware that she was the one pulling them apart. Her sharpest focus was on the main accuser, the one whose testimony had carried the most weight, the one who had spoken with conviction. She approached cautiously, offering kindness. "I know we had problems before," she said softly. "I want to make peace." The accuser hesitated, wary. But her smile was convincing, her gestures sincere. Slowly, the accuser lowered their guard. Then the games began. She engineered situations where the accuser seemed aggressive. A misplaced word became harsh. A frustrated sigh became bullying. "Why are you always so mean to me?" she said loudly one day, tears welling in her eyes. The teacher turned, shocked. The accuser stammered, "I didn't." But the damage was done. Another report was filed. Week by week, the accuser's reputation crumbled. Classmates whispered that they were unstable, jealous, vindictive. Teachers began to doubt them. Meanwhile, her own reports glowed with praise. Student demonstrates leadership. Positive influence on peers. Model of kindness. The contrast was stark. She rose higher as the accuser sank lower. The accuser tried to fight back, to explain, to defend. But their words sounded desperate, paranoid. "She's manipulating you," they cried. Teachers shook their heads. "You need to calm down." Classmates avoided them. "You're always causing drama." The accuser's world shrank. Isolation pressed in. Despair grew. Finally, unable to bear the weight, they dropped out. She watched them leave, a quiet smile on her lips. The one who had once destroyed her with reports was now destroyed themselves. Her parents celebrated her transformation. Teachers praised her growth. Classmates admired her kindness. But beneath the mask, she knew the truth. She hadn't changed. She had simply learned to play the game better. Divide and conquer. Retaliation complete. As she walked through the hallway, the whispers had changed. No longer suspicion, but admiration. "She's so helpful. She's really changed." She carried her books neatly, her smile polished. But inside, she carried the memory of her victory, the collapse of her accuser, the reversal of power. Therapy had taught her the language of kindness. School had given her the stage. And she had used both to achieve her revenge. The reports now painted her as virtuous. But she knew, hypocrisy was her greatest weapon. Chapter 4. The mask of kindness had become second nature. She wore it effortlessly now, smiling at teachers, helping classmates, volunteering for tasks no one else wanted. But beneath the polished exterior, she was sharpening her weapons. Therapy had taught her the language of virtue, but she had twisted it into a tool of war. Her strategy was simple: do to them exactly what they accused her of, but cloak it in plausible deniability. When Amina had once accused her of mocking, she now mocked with precision, disguised as humor. "Oh, you're so adorable when you get nervous," she said with a laugh, loud enough for others to hear. The words stung, but the tone was playful. Teachers saw only a joke, not cruelty. When Brian had accused her of pushing, she engineered moments where he stumbled. A gentle nudge in the hallway, a playful shove during recess. "Careful, Brian," she exclaimed, feigning concern. To onlookers, it seemed accidental. To Brian, it was deliberate. Every accusation was mirrored back, but wrapped in innocence. She became untouchable, her actions hidden behind the veil of kindness. The brilliance of her plan lay in perception. Teachers and peers began to see her as the victim. "She's trying so hard," Ms. Wanjiru said during a staff meeting. "She's changed." "She's always helping now," Mr. Patel added. "It's the others who seem hostile." Classmates echoed the sentiment. "She's nice now. Why are they still against her?" The accusers found themselves painted as aggressors. Their complaints sounded petty, vindictive. "She mocked me," Amina whispered. But others shook their heads. "She was joking." "You're too sensitive." "She pushed me," Brian insisted. But the teacher frowned. It looked accidental. The tide had turned. She was no longer the accused, she was the victim. The main accuser suffered most. Once respected for their testimony, they now seemed paranoid. "She's manipulating you," they cried in class. "She hasn't changed," they insisted to teachers. But their words fell on deaf ears. Teachers saw only a student desperate to cling to old grievances. Classmates avoided them, tired of the drama. She intensified the pressure. Subtle whispers spread through the classroom. "He's jealous of me," she told one friend. "He wants attention." "He's always angry," she told another. "I'm worried about him." Soon, the accuser was isolated. Friends drifted away, teachers grew impatient, classmates rolled their eyes. Her genius lay in the balance between cruelty and innocence. She mocked, but with a smile. She shoved, but with laughter. She excluded, but under the guise of forgetting. Every act mirrored the accusations, but none could be proven. Teachers saw only accidents, jokes, misunderstandings. And when confronted, she feigned hurt. "Why do they hate me?" she asked softly. "I'm trying so hard." The teachers comforted her. "Ignore them. You're doing well." The main accuser began to unravel. Their frustration grew, their voice rose, their defenses crumbled. "She's lying," they shouted one day in class. "Enough," the teacher snapped. "You're disrupting." "She's bullying me," they cried at recess. "Stop exaggerating," classmates muttered. The more they fought, the more they seemed unstable. Their isolation deepened, their reputation shattered. Finally, the pressure became unbearable. They stopped coming to school. Rumors spread: depression, breakdown, withdrawal. And she smiled quietly, knowing her victory was complete. The reports now painted her as a model student. Student demonstrates leadership. Positive influence on peers. Resilient despite hostility. Her parents celebrated her transformation. Teachers praised her growth. Classmates admired her kindness. But beneath the mask, she knew the truth. She hadn't changed. She had simply mastered the art of reversal. Walking through the hallway, she felt the power shift. Once, whispers had branded her a bully. Now, whispers praised her virtue. She carried her books neatly, her smile polished. But inside, she carried the memory of her triumph, the collapse of her accuser, the reversal of power. Therapy had given her the tools. School had given her the stage. And she had used both to wage psychological warfare. The reports told one story. Reality told another. Chapter 5. The classroom had become a theater of contradictions. On one side stood the girl, smiling, helpful, praised for her transformation. On the other stood her main accuser, once confident, now unraveling under the weight of disbelief. The stage was set for collapse. The accuser's voice grew louder with each passing week. "She hasn't changed," they cried during group work. "She's still mocking us, still pushing us." But the words fell flat. Classmates exchanged uneasy glances, teachers frowned, and the girl tilted her head with feigned innocence. "I don't understand why he hates me so much," she whispered to a teacher, her eyes wide with hurt. The teacher sighed. "Ignore him. You're doing well." The accuser's frustration boiled over. They slammed books on desks, shouted in hallways, stormed out of classrooms. Each outburst was another nail in their coffin. What had once been righteous anger now looked like instability. Friends began to drift away. "You're too obsessed," one said quietly. "She's changed. Why can't you let it go?" Another added, "You're making yourself look bad." The accuser felt the walls closing in. Every attempt to expose her hypocrisy only deepened their isolation. The girl's mask was flawless, her kindness rehearsed to perfection. She offered to help teachers carry supplies, stayed after class to tidy desks, smiled at everyone. Meanwhile, the accuser stood alone, branded as bitter, jealous, unstable. Reports began to shift. Student displays disruptive behavior. Frequent outbursts in class. Difficulty managing emotions. The irony was sharp. Once, those words had been written about her. Now, they were written about the accuser. The roles had reversed completely. Teachers spoke in hushed tones. "He's struggling," they said. "We need to monitor him." Classmates whispered. "He's losing it." The accuser felt the weight of every word, every glance. Their reputation crumbled, their voice silenced. At home, the accuser's parents tried to intervene. "What's happening at school?" they asked. "She's lying," the accuser shouted. "She's manipulating everyone." But the parents frowned. Your teachers say you're the problem. You need to calm down. The words cut deep. Even at home, they were doubted. The spiral tightened, anger turned to despair, despair to hopelessness. They stopped participating in class. They avoided group work. Their grades slipped. Each day felt heavier, each step harder. Meanwhile, the girls' reports glowed with praise. Student demonstrates resilience despite hostility. Positive influence on peers. Model of kindness. Her parents celebrated her transformation. We're so proud, her mother said. Therapy worked. Teachers admired her growth. She's an example for others, they said. Classmates followed her lead, drawn to her charm, her apparent kindness. The irony was complete. The girl, once accused, now stood celebrated as a paragon of virtue. The accuser reached their breaking point. One afternoon, after another confrontation in class, they shouted, "You're all blind. She's fooling you." The teacher's face hardened. That's enough. Leave the room. The accuser stormed out, slamming the door. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the girl's soft sigh. I don't know why he hates me so much, she said. The teacher shook his head. Don't worry. You're doing fine. The accuser never returned to that classroom. Within weeks, rumors spread. He dropped out, classmates whispered. He couldn't handle it. Teachers spoke of him with pity. He was unstable, they said. It's sad. The girl walked through the hallway, her smile polished, her books neatly carried. Whispers followed her too, but now they were whispers of admiration. She's so kind. She's really changed. The outcome was clear. The accuser had collapsed, branded as unstable, while she stood tall, celebrated for her virtue. The irony was sharp, almost cruel. The girl who had once been buried under reports of bullying now basked in praise. The accuser who had once spoken truth now bore the weight of disbelief, their voice silenced, their reputation destroyed. She had done to them exactly what they had accused her of, but cloaked in innocence, wrapped in kindness. And the world believed her. Her hypocrisy was complete. As she walked through the school, she felt the power shift. Once, she had been the accused, the villain. Now, she was the hero, the paragon of virtue. She carried her mask with pride, knowing it had won her victory. The accuser had collapsed, their voice drowned out by whispers of instability. Chapter 6. I remember the first time I spoke against her. It wasn't courage, it was necessity. She had mocked me in front of everyone, her laughter slicing through my pride. I told myself that if I stayed silent, she would keep winning, keep crushing others. So I reported her. I thought I was protecting the class, protecting myself. At first, it worked. The teachers listened. The reports piled up. For once, she was the one cornered, not me. I felt a strange happiness watching her shrink under the weight of accusation. She had silenced so many of us with threats and whispers, but now she was the one silenced. I thought justice had finally arrived. It wasn't just about me. I saw what she did to Amina, to Brian, to others. The way she excluded them, mocked them, pushed them aside. I couldn't stand it. Every day felt like a battle, and she was the enemy. So I became the voice. I gathered the stories, repeated them to teachers, wrote them down when asked. I thought I was building a case, thought I was strong enough to stand against her. And when the reports came back, confirming what I said, I felt vindicated. She was branded a bully. I was the one who had exposed her. I won't lie, I was happy. Watching her parents sit in meetings, watching her squirm under questions, watching her reputation crumble, it felt like victory. For once, she wasn't untouchable. For once, she couldn't laugh it off. She was forced into therapy, forced to face consequences. I thought it was over. I thought I had silenced her for good. I walked through the halls with my head high. People whispered about her, not me. She was the villain, I was the truth teller. But then she came back. Smiling. Helping. Volunteering. It was terrifying. She looked different, acted different. Teachers praised her, classmates softened. She's changed, they said. I knew better. I saw the mask. I saw the calculation in her eyes. But no one else did. Fear gripped me. What if they believed her? What if all my work, all my reports, all my courage, was erased? I tried to fight back. I tried to redo what I had done before. She's mocking again, I told the teacher. She pushed me, I insisted. She hasn't changed, I warned. But the words fell flat. Teachers shook their heads. It looked accidental. She was joking. You're too sensitive. Classmates rolled their eyes. You're obsessed. She's nice now. Why can't you let it go? Every attempt to expose her failed. Every accusation turned back on me. It was torment. Watching her rise while I fell. Watching her praised while I was doubted. She did to me exactly what I had accused her of, but cloaked in innocence, wrapped in kindness. And the world believed her. I shouted, I cried, I begged people to see. But the more I fought, the more unstable I looked. Reports began to describe me. Student displays disruptive behavior. Frequent outbursts in class. Difficulty managing emotions. The irony was unbearable. She had worn those words once. Now they were mine. Friends drifted away. Teachers grew impatient. Classmates avoided me. I was alone. The voice that had once exposed her was now silenced. My truth had become torment. Every day felt heavier. Every glance carried suspicion. I was branded unstable, jealous, bitter. And she was celebrated. The breaking point came when I shouted in class, "You're all blind. She's fooling you." The teacher's face hardened. Enough. Leave the room. I stormed out, heart pounding, tears burning. But I knew it was over. I never returned to that classroom. Looking back, I see the cruel irony. I had targeted her because she was cruel. I had silenced her because she silenced others. I had defeated her because she deserved defeat. But when she returned, she turned everything upside down. My truth became lies, my courage became obsession, my voice became instability. She won. Not because she was innocent, but because she was better at playing the game. And I lost. Not because I was wrong, but because no one believed me anymore.